Diddy's ex wrapped up her testimony today after 4 grueling days on the stand.
She might have a lawsuit too.
Singer Don Richard testifies that Sean Diddy Combs hit Cassie Ventura with a skillet full of eggs.
You got to go back to the drugs and the alcohol, man. The drugs and the alcohol, man. And those things that make you do straight.
And what does it take to bring a courtroom to complete silence? Don Richard's gripping testimony about the abuse Cassie allegedly suffered at the hands of Diddy did exactly that. His words didn't just stun the jury. They exposed a harrowing truth that no one in the room was prepared to face. Get ready for the bombshell revelations that shattered the courtroom's composure and revealed a disturbing reality hidden for years.
Diddy's ex wrapped up her testimony today after 4 grueling days on the stand. The defense hit her hard during cross-examination, asking her about a stint in rehab for PTSD, a rape allegation, and asking her to read explicit text messages from over the past 15 years.
Richard accused Combs of sexual harassment, gender discrimination, and a hostile work environment by being exposed to sex trafficking and sex acts. She also alleged that she was a victim of false imprisonment. In her suit, Richard stated she was seeking compensatory and punitive damages, as well as other costs for post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and emotional suffering, and financial losses she suffered as a result of Combs' alleged behavior. Combs has denied her allegations. His lawyer told E! News in September, Mr. Combs is shocked and disappointed by this lawsuit. Richard's testimony in Combs' ongoing trial comes 8 months after she accused the rapper in a lawsuit of subjecting her to years of inhumane working conditions, which included groping, assault, and false imprisonment. The lawsuit, filed in September, obtained by E! News, stated, Mr. Combs frequently held meetings with Ms. Richard wearing only his underwear, despite Ms. Richard's protests and repeated requests for him to put on clothing. In her filing, the 41-year-old also alleged that Combs ordered her to strip down to her underwear, made demeaning remarks about her body, and entered her dressing room unannounced while she was unclothed, and touched her without her permission under the guise of showing the stylist what to do.
Richard's courtroom testimony hit like a thunderclap. As a former member of Danity Kane, a group created under Diddy's watch, she wasn't just another name from the past, but a direct witness to the world Cassie lived in. Her connection to both Diddy and Cassie was deeply personal, not just professional, and that's what made her revelations so devastating. She described moments of rage, emotional manipulation, and control, incidents she claimed to have personally witnessed. One particular account, where Diddy allegedly screamed at Cassie so aggressively that her body visibly reacted, left the courtroom frozen in stunned silence. But it wasn't just the volume of his voice. It was the fear he instilled, and the power he held over her. When Dawn finally said Cassie spent most of her time just trying to survive, those words landed like a hammer, summing up years of alleged abuse in one chilling sentence. Even Diddy, who had remained composed for most of the trial, appeared, visibly shaken. His body language tense, his expression darkening as he leaned in toward his legal team. For legal experts, Dawn's first-hand account wasn't just another piece of testimony. It was a turning point. Her voice carried the weight of truth long suppressed, and it painted a picture that the jury and the world could no longer ignore.
She witnessed, and she's saying that she witnessed a gangbang, which actually we know it as called a train. And she worked on the album, The Train to Paris. And like I heard one of the YouTube, it could be Tistel, say that we didn't know what the train to Paris meant. But now we know that the train to Paris was a train in Scotland. It wasn't a train in Paris, it was a train in Scotland. Every time I have a witness doing something is when 2 guys and 2 girls will go in the room. And that was just regular. And however they did it, whatever they did, that was their business. But he gotten bold enough whereas that he would do that in front of Dawn and other people at a poolside in Scotland. You sure it was Scotland, man?
Danity Kane alum Don Richard, who began working with Sean Diddy Combs while competing on his show Making the Band in 2004, took the stand after Cassie wrapped her testimony May 16th. Richard joined Combs' group Diddy Dirty Money after Danity Kane disbanded. While on the stand, she told jurors that she saw Combs hit Ventura with a skillet full of eggs at his Los Angeles home in 2009. Richard testified per NBC News. He came downstairs asking where his phone was, and he threw her to the ground. He attempted to kick her. She fell to the ground and went into the fetal position, literally trying to hide her head. In addition to striking Ventura with the skillet, Richard said Combs put his arm around the singer's neck and took her upstairs before she heard glass breaking. Richard added, "I was scared for her. I was scared to do anything."
The courtroom reached a boiling point when a shocking piece of evidence was played. An audio recording of Cassie that shifted the entire tone of the trial. On the tape, she's reportedly heard confronting and threatening a close Diddy associate who allegedly possessed video evidence of a violent altercation. The reaction in the room was instant. Jurors stunned, observers silent. This wasn't just another exhibit. It was a bombshell that exposed the emotional volatility at the heart of Cassie and Diddy's relationship. Cassie's voice in the recording was raw, desperate, and charged with fury. Legal experts described it as a breaking point. Not calculated, but the kind of emotional eruption that comes from years of fear, isolation, and psychological pressure. In the tape, Cassie demands answers, her voice trembling between rage and panic as she tries to protect herself and reclaim control. What's clear is that the toxic nature of their relationship had seeped into every corner of their lives, pulling even Diddy's inner circle into the chaos. Experts say this kind of emotional intensity is often seen in survivors of long-term abuse, where the line between fear and survival becomes increasingly blurred. One analyst noted that the recording added critical nuance. It didn't just support claims of abuse. It revealed the emotional aftermath, showing a woman on edge, pushed beyond reason by a toxic cycle she couldn't escape. This wasn't about revenge, it sounded like survival. While the tape alone may not serve as definitive proof, it builds powerfully on Dawn Richards' earlier testimony and other emerging accounts, creating a cohesive picture of control, manipulation, and emotional collapse. But with this powerful evidence comes an expected counterstrike. Diddy's legal team is likely to argue that the tape discredits Cassie, using her outburst to paint her as unstable, even dangerous. These strategies are common in high-profile defense cases, and rumors suggest Cassie's past, including her mental health, may soon be brought under the microscope. Still, the emotional weight of that recording is undeniable. It shattered the sanitized public image of their relationship and revealed a woman fighting, perhaps for the first time, to reclaim her voice. What happens next could determine everything. Will more witnesses and evidence deepen the portrait of a deeply abusive dynamic? Or will the defense succeed in reframing Cassie as unreliable? Either way, the jury is no longer just hearing allegations. They're witnessing the emotional wreckage left behind, and the story is only getting more intense.
Things that she's gonna have to bring up into the lawsuit, that Diddy stopped the way that she was working and how she could work by the fact that he would change, like you just said. What she would do, bro, he would turn off her mic and don't let her sing songs or don't let her do certain things, a part of the band, when he do her sexual advancements. I don't know what to say about that, brother. All I can say is that, all of it sounds like using his power. He's using his power to get at people that works for him. And when you do that, when they bring you to court, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose if they can prove it.
One text message, Cassie writes, "I'm lost without you."
We know now that she called herself Cece for Cassie Combs. We know now that she wanted to have a child with him.
Jurors also heard an audio recording where Cassie could be heard threatening to kill a Diddy associate who had video of one of her freak-offs with Diddy.
The jurors were shocked. I saw the eyebrows raised.
Cassie was asked about receiving a FaceTime from her now husband while she was having sex with Diddy.
I think they're trying to use what they can, again, to discredit her as a witness.
The defense team's attempt to discredit Cassie by dragging her past into the spotlight may have seemed like a calculated legal move, but it quickly backfired, adding unexpected weight to her story instead of weakening it. By highlighting her time in rehab, her diagnosis of PTSD, and even referencing a past rape allegation, the defense hoped to paint her as emotionally unstable and unreliable, someone whose testimony couldn't be trusted. But rather than casting doubt, These details painted a fuller picture of a woman who had endured significant trauma, making it easier for the jury to believe she was vulnerable to emotional manipulation and control, especially in a relationship with someone as powerful as Diddy. Legal experts noted that instead of undermining Cassie, this approach may have strengthened her case. It showed how her personal struggles could have made her more susceptible to the kind of psychological grip Cassie now claims Diddy held over her. One of the most talked about moments was the introduction of private text messages between the two, particularly one where Cassie wrote, "I'm lost without you." The defense tried to frame this as proof of emotional dependence, suggesting their relationship was mutual, if not entirely healthy. But trauma experts pushed back, explaining that victims of abuse often display attachment to their abuser, not because the abuse wasn't real, but because they've been conditioned to believe they have no way out. The messages didn't erase the abuse narrative, they revealed its complexity. The defense's argument that Cassie's emotional state made her an unreliable witness also followed a common pattern in high-profile abuse trials. Attack the survivor's mental health, expose their past, and use it to create just enough doubt. But in this case, that strategy seemed to miss the mark. Instead of revealing inconsistencies, it added layers to Cassie's account. Her history with PTSD and her time in rehab weren't signs of weakness. They became context for the psychological toll her relationship with Diddy may have taken. In fact, this line of questioning only reinforced the power imbalance at the core of Cassie's allegations. The courtroom and the public began to see her not just as someone telling a story, but as someone who had lived through years of mental and emotional entrapment. What the defense intended as a distraction ended up deepening the narrative. It brought the jury closer to understanding how trauma, manipulation, and control can shape a person's actions and emotional responses. And with more witnesses expected to testify, including former Danity Kane members and insiders from Diddy's professional world, the complexity of the case is only growing. Whether they meant to or not, the defense's tactics may have inadvertently validated Cassie's claims, exposing not just isolated incidents, but a disturbing pattern of behavior and the long-lasting damage it can leave behind.
Unfortunately, we're all going to take a disgusting trip to his seedy, awful world. You know, the man has no class. He has no kindness in his dark, dark heart. And he's depraved. That's my opinion. This is a depraved, disgusting individual.
The facts are the facts, the texts are the texts, and I think that the evidence will be clear.
That Ventura had a choice and that she chose to participate in those sexual encounters.
Where she is entertaining other people in the bedroom. He enjoyed having the freak-offs.
She's being asked specifically about the drug use.
She is clearly excited about a freak-off.
Day is the next name making headlines in this already explosive trial. As a former member of Danity Kane, she's stepping forward to testify about her own experiences under Diddy's management. The question on everyone's mind, what did she see? And what does she know? And she's not alone. More of Diddy's former employees, people who worked closely with him both professionally and personally, are preparing to take the stand. With each witness, the picture being painted becomes harder to ignore. This trial is no longer about isolated incidents. It's about establishing a disturbing pattern of behavior. Dawn Richards' earlier testimony already rocked the courtroom. Her account of Cassie's emotional distress under Diddy's alleged control forced jurors to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Now, with Aubrey about to testify, those patterns could become even more damning. She's long been vocal about the high-pressure, toxic environment surrounding Diddy, and while she hasn't directly accused him of abuse before, her testimony could connect the dots in ways the defense never anticipated. Legal experts emphasize that multiple consistent testimonies, especially from different roles and perspectives, are incredibly powerful in court. They build a chain of narrative that becomes harder to discredit. Dawn described moments of manipulation and emotional strain. If Aubrey confirms any of that, it turns Cassie's allegations from personal grievance into part of a larger, systemic issue. Then there are the former employees. These weren't just background figures. They were managing Diddy's day-to-day life. If they confirm any knowledge of abuse, or worse, reveal that they were asked to cover things up, their testimonies could fill in crucial gaps. Even their decision to speak out raises serious questions. What did they see, and why are they speaking now? The defense will be forced to cast doubt on each witness, but the more people who speak up, the harder that becomes. Aubrey might reveal how Diddy's alleged need for control extended beyond personal relationships into professional ones. If that's the case, the prosecution's portrayal of Diddy as someone who thrives on power and intimidation could become undeniable. And then there's Diddy himself. His behavior throughout the first week of trial has become a spectacle in its own right. From the moment Cassie began her testimony, courtroom observers noticed subtle cracks in his usually composed exterior. He squirmed during her most emotional statements, clenched his jaw during tense exchanges, and lost his calm altogether when Dawn Richard delivered her damning testimony. Witnesses described Diddy whispering aggressively to his legal team, his body language growing more defensive with each passing day. He tried to maintain his image, cool, in control, untouchable. But as more evidence was presented, including private texts and audio recordings, that image started to crumble. One of the most talked about shifts happened during the playback of explosive audio recordings. The courtroom atmosphere changed. This wasn't about celebrity gossip anymore. It was about real people evaluating real trauma, and the weight of that was written across the jury's faces. What made things worse for Diddy was that his reactions were being watched just as closely as the evidence. Every glare, every whisper, every shift in posture was dissected. For someone whose career was built on commanding the spotlight, the vulnerability he displayed under pressure may end up working against him. This trial is already redefining Diddy's legacy. Once seen as a music mogul who built an empire on charm and hustle, he now faces serious questions about what that empire was built on. And with more witnesses like Aubrey O'Day preparing to testify, that empire looks increasingly fragile. The pressure is mounting. More first-hand accounts are expected, and each one carries the potential to further dismantle the defense's narrative. Diddy's reputation, career, and future all hang in the balance. What comes next could change everything, not just for Diddy, but for how the industry addresses abuse, power, and control. This trial is no longer just a celebrity scandal. It's becoming a cultural turning point. Stay informed, support survivors, and don't look away. The next chapter of this trial could be the one that changes everything.